Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And today we're going to be previewing a game that is coming to Kickstarter called Kinfire Chronicles Nights Fall.
Yes, this game is designed by Kevin Wilson, Darrell Hardy, Adela Kapuścińska, as well as Brandon Perdue, and is published by Incredible Dream Studios, who are sponsoring this video. In this game, it is kind of a adventure game where you're going to be going on different quests, fighting off different things. We don't want to give too much away, obviously, because it's a story-driven game. And we are going to show you how it plays today.
This game is brought to us by designers who designed titles such as Descent and Arkham Horror. And so, like Naveen was mentioning, this is a story-driven adventure-type game for 1 to 4 players where everybody plays cooperatively over the course of several quests that last anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes each. The final production copy of the game is going to come with over 15 quests, 20 locations, and 100 enemies and NPCs. So there's a lot of content here. In terms of gameplay, there's combat, there's adventuring, there's a deck construction mechanic, and the entire game is totally replayable.
So the purpose of this video is to kind of give you an overview of the game and understand the mechanisms and how the game is structured. We don't want to give away too many spoilers because it is a story kind of quest-driven game. We do want to note that this is a prototype copy of the game, so things are subject to change in the future. Like we mentioned at the beginning of the video, this game is coming to Kickstarter, so if you are interested in it, there will be a link down below. Also, if you do like these kind of videos and you do want to see more in the future, please consider subscribing.
And with that, we are ready to begin. So if you would please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here for our 2-player game of Kinfire Chronicles Nights Fall. Welcome to the city of Dinlux, where the inhabitants are in danger of a phenomenon known as the darkness. And so in this game, players play as one of 6 different seekers who are helping protect the city from this phenomenon. Now, the way that the game works is the game is played over several quests. And so here we have quest number 1, which is Road to Vina. And so today I'm going to be playing as Asha of Brillbrook.
Nice.
And so I'm an opportunist. I'm an elven rogue, by the way, but my ability says attacks made by other heroes deal an additional damage to any enemies in Asha's space. I also start the game with 1 armor in my hand because there is a strong deck construction mechanic in this game, as well as 11 health. But since this is a 2-player game, I actually start with 5 additional, so I have 16 here. And these health dials are one of the components that are definitely going to be different in the final copy.
I have here Fane Longstride, and I'm a Bard of Destiny with my lute in hand. My basic ability is I can play up to 2 wards in play at the same time. If I play a 3rd ward, I must discard 1, however. I have no armor and 13 health, which is 18 because it's a 2-player game.
Each character also has their own asymmetric lantern, which is thematically a very important component in the game, but we'll discuss these later. And finally, each character also has their own asymmetric starting deck, which we are going to be customizing and kind of constructing as the campaign progresses. And so we each start the quest with 7 cards in our hand. Our first quest, the Road to Vina, opens up right in the heat of battle against this wyvern.
Now, considering combat is a major part of this game, we're going to show you exactly how that works.
Yes, combat in this game follows sort of a hallmark system that has to do with this destiny bag. During combat, we're going to be drawing destiny chits from this destiny bag. Destiny chits look like this, and they showcase the likeness of each of our characters, as well as some of the enemy chits that you can see here. During combat, at the start of each turn, we are going to draw 1 destiny chit out of the bag, and that is going to determine whose turn it's going to be next. Now, this doesn't mean that there's going to be a considerable amount of downtime, because the way that the game works is you can boost actions on other players' turns, and you can also play cards during the enemy's turn. And so players are fairly active during the entire game. Now, for this quest, we're basically going up against our enemy, the wyvern, and the wyvern starts on this space right here. They also have a starting health of 30, and our goal for now is just to defeat this wyvern.
We got to get rid of it.
My character, Asha, is going to start on this space that I chose.
And I'm going to be on this one over here.
And so let's just say we did draw this chit to start this this combat, which means I am going to be taking the first turn. On your turn as a seeker, you can either play a card from your hand, or you can pass and draw or discard a card from your hand. Now, the cards in our deck come in 2 main types. You'll either have action cards, or you'll also see boost cards, and those card types are specified on the card itself. In addition, there's 3 main colors of cards. There's red, green, and blue, and they stand for power, finesse, and wisdom, which is going to be very important for when we go to boost each other's actions. There are also white cards, which are considered wild, which we'll talk about later. Now, let's say on my turn, I play this action card, Asha's Dagger. And so action cards are going to primarily allow you to attack. This is a ranged attack, which means I can attack an enemy exactly 1 space away for 2 attack points. The problem is the enemy is more than 1 space away. Fortunately, before or after taking your action, you can move 1 space. So I'm going to move 1 space in this direction before I actually play this card.
Okay.
Now that I'm a space away, I can take this ranged attack and attack the Wyvern for 2. Like we were mentioning earlier, players can boost each other's actions by playing a boost card of the same color.
Yep. And so I have Battle of the Fade, which deals 2 additional damage to the enemy.
Right, so now we can deal 4 damage total.
Yep. And of course, their health wheel is going to go down by 4.
Right. Now that's specifically ranged attack.
Yep.
In addition to ranged, of course, there's melee attack, but you have to be in the exact same space as the enemy you're attacking. But those are the primary types of actions that you'll see on your cards. And so had I instead played an action card that has a white border, Naveen could have boosted with any color card.
Right, because it's wild. Instead of attack actions, we also have ward cards, and these basically stay in play. So these can be ongoing benefits for you. This one in particular is called Battle of the Fade.
These cards, when played, stay face up in front of you, and they're just an ongoing benefit. And some action cards allow you to put one of these status effects on the enemy card. So I have an action card here called Right in the Soft Bits. After attacking, this is a melee attack by the way for 2, after attacking I get to place 2 of these weak status effects on each of my target's active abilities. Our enemy over here has 3 main active abilities that are going to trigger on their turn. When you place a status effect on an ability, you're going to take that status card from here and literally cover up that ability. And so whenever that ability triggers, you have to trigger the status effect before actually triggering the ability underneath it. And lastly, certain attacks have this symbol over it called drawing aggro. And so if you attack with a card with that symbol, after attacking, the enemy will now target you. At the start of combat, enemies will typically target or focus on one particular player. In this specific quest, at the bottom of the Wyvern card, it says the focus is going to be on the player with the most amount of health, which in this particular game is Naveen, which is why he has the focus token. Thematically, this means that the Wyvern is hyper-focused on Naveen, and the Wyvern is going to try to kill Naveen before anybody else. But playing a card with that symbol will actually recenter the enemy so that now the enemy is going to be focused on me.
Right.
Now, before we discuss the enemy's turn, I just want to briefly mention that in addition to dealing damage with boost cards, your teammates can boost additional types of actions, including drawing cards or boosting movement, as long as their boost card matches the color of the action card you played.
And this is all perfectly detailed on this little cheat sheet that we have here.
Yes. Now, the way that the enemy's turn works is anytime you pull out a numbered chit from the Destiny bag, that is going to represent one of the enemy's active abilities here. And so in this example, I pulled out a 5, which means it's going to be the enemy's turn to attack, and they're going to use the ability that's in the row that has the 5 in it. And so our Wyvern over here is going to be able to do a melee attack for 8. Before or after their action, they also get to move 1 space. Had the Wyvern truly been focused on my character, they would move 1 space towards me, into my space, and then attack me for 8.
Yes.
That sounds like a lot, because it is.
It is.
And it would be a very, very bad thing, because we could potentially lose the game if one of our Seekers loses all of their health. But fortunately, players can also play boost cards during the enemy's turn to help protect the team from that kind of damage. Boost cards with this specific symbol allow you to reduce the attack by a certain amount, but a very important rule is you can only play boost cards either on somebody else's turn or when the attack is not targeting you. So you can never play a boost card if you're being attacked, unfortunately.
And I don't have one of those cards, so you're taking the full load.
Great. So I would go down 8 damage here, bringing me to a grand total of 8 health. Not good.
If you take one more of those, you're done. We're done.
Actually, not so fast. My character starts the quest with an armor in my hand.
Right. Okay.
If you have an armor card in your hand and you get attacked, you must show all of your armor cards, and your the amount of damage you're dealt is decreased by 1 for each armor card. So really, I gain 1 more health here.
So you have 9, so you can survive 2 attacks, technically.
And after you're dealt the damage, you must discard 1 armor card from your hand, which means if you had 3, you still only discard 1.
Right.
And you get these armor cards back into your hand whenever you have to refresh your hand, which happens, by the way, if you ever have a hand with no action cards in it. You're required to discard your entire hand and draw back up to 7, resetting your armor cards, but also getting 1 damage for every exhausted card you had to discard. And so exhausted is a status effect similar to these 4 cards. The difference, though, is whenever these status effects get given to Seekers, they go directly into their hand, and they usually resolve at the start of their next turn, which then allows you to discard the status effect. Exhausted, however, stays in your deck until you go to an inn, which is well past this combat.
Right.
And by the way, I also want to mention that anytime you redraw your hand, you also charge your lantern. And so each player has an asymmetric lantern. Mine is Sight's Twilight. And this is basically a special ability that I can recharge multiple times during combat. Lanterns actually have a strong thematic integration, which is part of the larger story, but we'll leave that up to you to discover more about them. Now, in addition to blocking, teammates might also boost the team by playing cards that allow you to heal or redraw the chit from the bag.
So if you didn't like what was pulled, you can always mitigate it that way.
Right. Now, going back to our enemy, the Wyvern over here, that was chit number 5 that I drew, and so they would deal 8 damage, and then afterwards, it says here the Wyvern refocuses. Like we were mentioning earlier, the Wyvern focuses on the player with the most amount of health.
Right. So that would be me, because Monique is down to 9. I would be at 18 again because this is a 2-player game.
Exactly.
So it comes back to me.
So now the Wyvern is going to stop at nothing to get to you.
Yes.
Had we pulled a chit numbered 6 through 9, or the Darkness token, which has this symbol on it, it would trigger this middle ability. But if you notice, we have a status effect called Weak. You must resolve the status effect first when the ability triggers, which says each of this enemy's attacks deal 1 less damage this turn.
Perfect.
Which is great for us. So then this gets discarded, and then you would resolve the ability underneath it, which is a 4 damage attack.
Mm-hmm.
And this bottom ability, by the way, says remove all statuses from the Wyvern, then the Wyvern moves directly to its target's space.
And not good.
So as you can see throughout combat, the Wyvern is going to follow some sort of a combat choreography depending on the order in which these abilities activate. Now, just a few other things about combat. Anytime you draw either a heart symbol or this destiny token, these chits actually go on the time track over here that has space for 4 chits. Whenever this time track gets completely filled, we take all of the chits that were spent and put it back in the bag. So that is a way for us to reset this bag so that you never know who's going to go next. Mm-hmm. We also have fate tokens that allow us to discard a fate token in order to draw 4 chits from the bag and choose who's going next. And that's pretty much how combat works. If either the enemy's health or one of the seeker's health goes down to 0, then you just refer back to the quest and kind of see what happens next. It may end the quest for you completely, or it might even upgrade the enemy. And so some of these enemies are multi-level enemies, which means they get stronger halfway through the combat, but we won't get into the specifics of that today. Now, in addition to combat, the other major aspect of the game has to do with adventuring. Each quest has a specific deck of cards that players are going to be reading together, and these scenarios will oftentimes give you a decision that you have to make. Some of these decisions require you to do a skill check that has to do with flipping the top card from your deck.
Some decisions will reward you for choosing the specific option that pertains to your character.
And some options require certain characters to be in play in order for you to choose them. Now, this is important because the decisions you make in this game quite impact the way that the story is going to go, including potentially the way that the game ends. Adventuring will also sometimes lead you to discover new quests, as well as these loot packs, which get you additional cards as well.
And after most quests, players will have city actions that allow you to explore the town that you're in.
And at those towns, you can go shopping, you can trade, and you can go to the inn to construct your deck. Now, those are just the basic elements that work in Kinfire Chronicles. There's a lot more to explore. We definitely did not go over everything. There are a lot of enemies, NPCs, and allies for you to discover as well. But if you'd like to learn more about this game, feel free to check out their Kickstarter, which is linked in the description below.
Thank you so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.